Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm glad to have you back. Hey, if you haven't done so and you wouldn't mind doing so, please subscribe to the podcast. It's on 30 different channels. Obviously, the biggest one is going to be Apple. And if you could do that, that'd be awesome. It helps a lot. And while you're there online, definitely check out globalinvestoragent.com. That's the site we created about a year ago. We have agents all over the country that are trained to work with you and I as consumers and investors. Particularly for investors, they're not your typical agent. These agents have the tools and the strategies to identify, analyze, and negotiate on and off market deals for you and I. Okay. So speaking of investor agents, we actually have one. John Giggy is joining us today out from Brentwood, California. So John, first off, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're busy, and I'm glad to have you on board.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, John and I are actually on the same team. So this is a special privilege for me to be able to do this. We've known each other for several years, and I've learned to know and love and like John and respect him. He's an excellent professional at what he does. So this is one, guys, you're going to want to take notes on if you're a consumer and you're interested in that area. And if you're an agent, particularly, really pay attention, because the way this market's going, you want to be able to perform like John does. So John, now that I put you on this big giant pedestal, if you could give us a little background, how did you end up where you are now? And tell us a little bit about some of the training you've had along the way, if you don't mind,
Yeah, so I'm a California native, born and raised in San Jose. And my background isn't really pretty. And so I pretty much, came from a dysfunctional family. And so it wasn't something that, one likes to brag about or whatnot, but it was okay. It was good. I mean, it's like what I've heard many times. It doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So I'm grateful for the experiences that I've gained from that. And I believe that I'm here, specifically today, this morning, because of that. So it's made me who I am today. Real estate started in 2004. Prior to that, I was an engineer, a systems engineer in computers and networking, working for EDS, electronic data systems. It's really interesting is I believe that there's always a little spark, even when we're children, of something that we want to do. And I remember I was in probably third grade. And my third grade elementary teacher, actually, I think I was probably around fourth grade. And my fourth grade elementary teacher was a realtor. And so he's the one that showed my mom and I the house that she ended up buying over in San Jose. And so I just remember looking at him, this little kid looking at, and I admired my teacher. He was awesome, bearded guy, really nice and very genuine. And he took us through the process. And I was like, wow, I really would like to do this. This is kind of cool. So then when I was in high school, there was a program with a local community college where we can enroll in real estate classes so that we kind of get a taste, or we can enroll in any type of classes for that matter, so that we get a taste of college, of what's coming, right? What's next when we graduate. And I don't know why, but not knowing, really understanding whole real estate, the whole gambit of real estate, I end up taking a broker's class. That was way over my head. I was like, I don't understand this. I don't get it. So I didn't do too well. However, there was always something in me that I wanted to get into real estate. So being in the IT industry for several years, we reached 2004, and there was an opportunity. A friend of mine was getting into it as well. So we figured, hey, let's buddy up and let's do this. And so 2004, I jumped in, got my license. My first company was with Keller Williams Realty. And pretty much served there for 17 years. 17 years till I made the transition to where I'm at today. And very grateful for the company, learned a lot, grew a lot. Personal development ended up being a really huge part of my life, and which has contributed to a lot of what I'm doing today.
Awesome. Well, if you don't mind, one of the things I really admire about you is you are a learner and definitely a student of personal development, personal growth. Would you mind digging into the John Maxwell a bit? I know we're not here like promoting anything particular, but I've always admired John Maxwell too, and I've read some of his books and really appreciate what he's doing for the world. So if you wouldn't mind, share a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people listening, there's professional people in dentistry and engineering and airline pilots and teachers, and anybody could benefit from that. So if you got firsthand experience. Sure.
Absolutely. I am one of the founding members of the John Maxwell team. So it's probably, it's been several years now. I don't even remember. And so I came in right at the tail end when it was transitioning. So it was kind of, there was a gentleman by the name of Rick Vandermine, and he is a thought leader up in the Sacramento area. He's also heavily involved with Keller Williams. I believe he owns some market centers. I know he was in management, and he's the one that introduced me to it. Mm-hmm. And so when I went to my first event to get certified, become certified trainer, speaker, and coach with the John Maxwell team, I was really, really impressed. There were people all over the world. I mean, we had Arabian, what do they call them? Priests, or the ones that have the whole, okay, right? The whole
clerics. I think clerics.
What was that?
Is it clerics? The clerics?
Clerics or princes. They had the whole, the outfit that they usually wear. And so there was a few of those that actually came from their country. I met people from Afghanistan, from Japan. It was a really amazing just to see how powerfully John Maxwell's concept of becoming a coach and trainer and speaker has spread throughout the entire world. And I was really impressed with just the whole setup and everything. And I dived in all the way. I ended up getting involved in the mentorship side too, so that I can become a mentor, be mentored by the faculty, and also become a mentor within the John Maxwell team as well. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, I think through the JMT, we'll call it John Maxwell team, that's where I grew a lot. I really got to know who John Maxwell really is. Mm-hmm. Obviously, read tons of his books. And that's where I really grew personally. I really started to realize, this whole world of personal development and personal growth, right? And growing your mindset and your belief system. That's where I grew immensely. And then obviously it's just created opportunities for me to go to the next level in my life. And so I'm very grateful for the JMT team, and highly recommend anybody that's looking to get involved in something. John Maxwell team is awesome. It's hands down. It's really good.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I've been blessed to have some pretty amazing coaches over the years. And, what's interesting is, of course, I teach real estate investors how to invest, and I teach the agents how to work with them. And, a lot of it is tactics and strategies. But at the end of the day, I always start with their vision. What is your vision? And a lot of that comes back to, what I've learned from John Maxwell too, is it's, you can teach and you can learn all the tactics and strategies in the world, but to really attain success and fulfillment, you have to start with who you are as a person. It's a who thing. Success is an inside job. It's, who you are will lead to what you do, which will lead directly to what you have. But what's interesting is what you do and what you bring to the team. I really appreciate, because the group that you run, that we call the C group, the championship. It's the champion group. It's a mastermind group for those listening. It's something we do on our team. But John Giggy runs that group, and the reason why people keep going to it is because they realize it's where you're coming from. Love and contribution, and your joy for what you've got to really love people to do this business, to be able to serve people. When you laser beam focus on that and get clarity, right? And you have clarity in that and clarity in your vision, what you do, helping people identify good properties, helping them negotiate, close, it all has more purpose and fulfillment. And that's what brings you back. That's one of the keys. So John, tell me, what your thoughts are on that, and how it's helped you in real estate to be able to keep coming back to do it again and again. Because we know that there are transactions that are not so fun and some that are great and things like that. So, but it's what brings you back, I think, is the joy and the fulfillment from serving others. I mean, I'm going to stop talking because I want to let you fill in.
That's okay. No,
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. And it's so true. It's like, you have to discover self.
Mhm.
I mean, you could passively run your business, right? You could intentionally run your business and not really experience true fulfillment.
Mhm.
Success has become such a used up word that our mindset doesn't really take it seriously anymore.
Mhm.
So that's, oh, I'm successful. Okay, great. What does that look like? Right. And the question that I ask, are you fulfilled? Well, not really. Well, then what's more important, to have success, to reach a certain level and make all this money and have all this business, or is fulfillment more important?
Mhm.
And when you discover self, that's where you start to realize who you are, who your avatar ends up being. And then now you become intentional in targeting those people. That's where you're going to find fulfillment, because now you're doing something that's really a part of you that you're passionate about. And I think a lot of us, we run, and never have any fulfillment because we never really tapped into our passion. And I believe once we tap into our passion, that's where we get excited, right? I was just coaching somebody yesterday and just having a conversation and seeing where she's at. And it was like a gap that was in between. She wanted to get to this side. She couldn't see it. And I kind of, the way I described it was, you got a bunch of fog and you're driving and you have anxiety because you're looking, you're paying attention to every part of that road so you won't wreck. But then once that fog clears, you're like, you have a sense of peace. And then now you have a direction. Now you know where you're going to go. And so that's a huge gap. And so what we need to do is fill that gap. And when we discover ourselves, then we know what the next step is, so that we can, have that call it the filler, to fill that gap so that we can get to the other side. And so I think, majority of the people in the world are running, but there's really no true fulfillment. And so that's why I always like helping people. Let's find out who you really are. Who is John Giggy? Who is Gary?
Yeah.
What do you want to do when you grow up, type of thing. And once you start having that revelation and that awareness, you're like, okay, this makes sense. Now you can be intentional, even more laser focused in your business. And then to answer your question, what brings me back is the fulfillment part, right? It's like, there was a client that we just worked with, just closed the deal. And it was their very first home, young couple. And so everything was new to them. And anxiety was just off the charts. And so it almost came across as they didn't trust me because they asked me a lot of questions. But it wasn't that. It wasn't that they didn't trust me. They didn't trust me, or they didn't trust me. And it was just so new to them that they just like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Is this going to happen? This going to happen? And it was kind of like a too good to be true for them. They're waiting for the shoe to drop every single time.
Yeah.
And so it was a very emotional relationship at that time. However, it was awesome to see the smile in their face when I gave them the keys. And then also the review they just gave us, a 5-star review.
Yeah.
And everything that they said was, he was patient, he was kind. And I'm not like that with everybody, right? Because if I'm dealing with a high D or a doctor, an engineer, there's going to be a whole different level of communication and level of relationships that are going to take place there. So it's just, adjusting to every single client. And that's what brings me back, is those smiles on their faces. I got a client that I've been working with for 10 years now. Every year he buys an investment property with us. And I've taught him so much. And he and I have learned from each other. And it's amazing. His style is different than everybody else. However, he's got 10 properties right now. Yeah. And then now we're talking about doing some multi-units, and so just seeing, the reward is truly is just seeing them have fulfillment, seeing them have success. And so that's just continually, because there's some roller coaster rides. There's some times where I tell people, when you're first getting into this business, you're going to want to quit. And this is what I do with everybody, even in marriage counseling. I said, look, you got to stake your flag right now that I'm not going to quit. You got to set that in your mind. I am not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. Yes, it's going to be tough. You set those expectations up front. And then so that when you end up running into a situation like that, then you remind yourself, no, I'm not giving up. And so I tell people, it's going to be a roller coaster ride. You're going to quit. You're going to quit. No, I'm not going to quit. And I'm in for the long haul. And then later on, they're like, John, I'm leaving. I'm doing something else. I'm going back to my job. But it's the reward that we get from working with each client and the success and the fulfillment that they get to have. That's what brings me back.
We'll be right back with the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast after I invite you to Monday Night Live. Every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, I teach a class without fail for you on subjects ranging from flipping to buying rentals, managing rentals, wholesaling, commercial, creative purchasing techniques, analyzing properties, identifying properties, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of subjects. And if you are a licensee, if you have a real estate license, you should definitely tap in, because there are a lot of investor agents also in the class. Many of them are on the global investor agent team. So you can learn from them, as well as from me, how to actually work with investors correctly and profitably. All right, we'll see you Monday night. The link is in the show notes. Go ahead and register. We'll get right to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Yeah. It's interesting. What comes to mind is the relationship, and the things you just described there all come about as a result of a good working and healthy relationship. And I learned this early on too. When you're hungry, you generally go for the transaction. Well, guys, I'm going to tell you, a transaction will get you a commission, but a relationship will get you a lifetime of business. Sure. Repeat business, referral business. And so it took me a while to grasp that. When I started focusing on the relationship, asking the right questions, and basically open-ended questions, who, what, where, when, how, why. Let them talk and listen. You become a great listener. And then what happens is you got a relationship, and you get these wonderful reviews and feedback. I've had clients, I've been to my clients' children's weddings. One client actually took my brother and I both, completely paid for, door to door, skiing with him in Vail, Colorado. He has a place out there. I mean, at first I thought, is this legal? You got to actually accept it. And he said, don't worry about it. I've got it covered. And just an amazing thing, because we helped him flip a 15-unit building, and he cleared, after everything, it was like almost $300,000. This was a while ago, so today it might be $3 million. Who knows? But in any case, I learned, this is a little side note for all the agents out there. This is for you. Some of you have developed some wonderful relationships. I know you can recount transactions you've had with people buying their first home or their retirement home. Well, let me tell you, when you work with investors, building those relationships becomes easier, because you have so much repeat business in their lifetime. I have clients that are well past retirement, and we still connect with each other. It's been years, decades even sometimes. Mm-hmm. We'll go golfing, skiing, go to Florida together, things like that. It's an amazing part of life. And I've probably developed more friendships from the business than I ever got business from my old friends, Mm-hmm. Hey, John, if you wouldn't mind, I know some people are probably thinking, right now the market's shifting, it's changing. What do I do? Is there anything I can do or should do? So let's just talk about your area of, basically the Bay Area and specifically East Bay. Anything you're seeing or you might maybe see things going in the marketplace there? What can people look for, and how can they, if they're looking to buy or sell a home, how can they react relative to the business? And if you don't mind sharing I know it's a moving target and it's all guesstimation at this point, but people are always interested in what we think about this stuff, because it is changing.
Well, I haven't been as in the business as long as a lot of people have. Mine is going to be 19 years this July. And so what I've seen, I came in at the end of the the hot market in 2004. So I got to experience a couple recessions, and obviously the whole the dot-com crash and the whole foreclosure era. And what I have, and also too, I've looked at the stats or the history of real estate that goes way back to the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And what I found was only once in 2007 and 2008 was the time where property values tanked heavily, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if all the other years, all the other recessions and economic downturns, property values went up.
Aha.
So I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then I also looked at all of the counties in all California back to 1990s. You can get that if you're in California, you can get that on CAR, and which is California Association of Realtors. And what I noticed was, because I'm from San Jose, so I guess I was, focused on that area. And in 1990s, homes were going for 200 or something K, 290 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back, there's no way, even in what places would be called the ghetto,
Mm-hmm.
are not 200 something K. They're like 900 K right now.
Wow.
100K. And so what I learned was it's all mindset. It's all mindset. So there's shifts all the time. We just have to shift with the market. So like you taught me, is that we want to diversify ourselves. We want to get into investments, learn that area. We want to get into commercial, learn that area. We want to get into, obviously, stay in the residential and all the different areas that are available. And like within our company at EXP, there's opportunities to become an REO certified agent or to become a relocation certified agent. It's to diversify ourselves. So when these shifts happen, then we can kind of like just move this direction. Oh, okay, now we're ready to move this direction. Because I remember when REOs hit, if it wasn't for Rick Jiha, if you remember Rick, Rick. Mm-hmm. So Rick was one of my mentors. And I remember it was a 3-hour drive from here. He had a seminar, and it was how to go from striving to thriving in a down market. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a good title. I'm interested in that. I drove 3 hours to go to the class. And that's when I learned, guys, get ready, foreclosures are coming. And then I jumped in on it. And that's how I got into the REO side. And if it wasn't for that, of having the open mind to want to do something, outside of my real estate bubble, I probably would have missed the boat on the REOs. And then the REOs was one of the best times of our lives in making and earning income. And then we noticed short sales came. So it's another shift, right? Then short sales phased out and it's another shift. And then, so now we're kind of dealing with high interest rates. Okay, it's another shift. Start looking for the people that need to buy right now, right? And so one of the things that we're doing is we're educating people. Okay, let's look at your current circumstances. I'm talking to a client right now. I said, yes, assessments over here in this area that he's looking at are $5,000, not including your property taxes. So I said, you're looking at probably $10,000, $11,000 just in taxes. Now that may work for somebody else, that might work for you, or it may not, but you just have to look at your whole situation, take a look at your budget, and then also take a look at what are you getting, right? You're moving from this property to a much bigger home, more rooms, more space, bigger backyard. And so you got to outweigh all that. So everybody's circumstance is totally different. So instead of saying, forget it, I know a lot of agents that are all like, don't buy right now. Don't buy right now because it's not a good time. And I know they say that with well intentions. However, I learned as a coach, and this is what I learned in John Maxwell, when you're coaching people, never be the influencer. Never influence the person that you're coaching. You're just leading them so to the point where they get the answer, right? The answer becomes an aha moment to them. Because if I influence, then I may basically mess something up there. So the same thing with real estate. It's like, I'm not going to influence. I'm going to paint the picture. I'm going to educate you. I'm going to give you the options, the pros and the cons, and I'm going to ask you and your significant other or yourself, just go throw everything on the table, outweigh everything, and see if this is going to make sense for you, right?
Yeah.
And then a lot of times they'll tell me, no, I'll wait. Okay, that's fine. I'm with you. I'm back you up 100%. And sometimes, you know what, John, it made sense. The guy I'm talking to right now, he says, yeah, I am going to get a lot more. So maybe paying that extra money is going to be a wash. You know,
Right.
one of my, the investor client that I was telling you about that buys with us every year, he said something that was pretty profound. He says, right now in this market, you're winning. So
Yeah.
if you buy right now, you win, because later on there's going to be equity. Yeah, you're going to pay high interest rates, but you're still going to buy lower than what it potentially going to become. So you're winning, right? And you're going to buy and hold. So eventually later on, maybe 20 years from now, you have a bunch of assets that you'll be able to set yourself up for retirement. You won. He goes, you win either way. This is somebody who is an investor, where most investors right now are saying, I'm not getting involved because it is crazy out there right now. And he's like, doesn't matter what decision you make, you're going to be a winner regardless. And I was like, wow, that is actually pretty powerful, Jason. And I said, thank you. And so it's all mindset. It really is. And I think we really need to get our mindset together so that we can be that agent that the clients are looking for, that we truly help them out. Like you said, they become our friends forever. You know, like my client, you know, I'm telling you about right now, he's got a brand new baby. So now it's like, you know, actually just turned 1 year old. And so it's like, I'm part of that now. Right. And he's happy to share that with me. And, you know, we have a bond and stuff. I get invited to the birthdays, to the quinceañeras, to the weddings and stuff like that. And that's just the fun part.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
It's all mindset.
Yeah, it is. You know, what's amazing is, in the last recession, of course, it was a big one. It was probably the biggest economic downturn since the Great Depression. You know, that time it was, 70, 80 years earlier. But in any case, the reality is, one of my coaches, he reminded me of this. We actually did quite well in the last recession because we were already in the business of working with investors. And of course, they were gobbling up REOs like it was candy. But he said, a lot of agents are going to leave. And he was right. Half the agents left the business in the last recession because they were not able to make that mental shift and be open to what are the opportunities and plug yourself in. And he said, think about it statistically. He said, look, are these houses going anywhere? Are they being torn down and bulldozed? And the answer is no, they're still there. They're just trading hands. They're going from one ownership to another ownership. Your job was to be part of that transaction, and just like you, we did a ton of those REOs, but it wasn't like I had a big game plan for that. I just was open to the opportunity, and we started getting all those. The banks were looking at us saying, "Hey, you guys are doing pretty good. Think you can sell these?" And some of them were not fun. I mean, they were dogs with fleas. But then you get rewarded with a mansion on the 9th green of the golf course, and so. But the cool thing about that is we developed so many more new relationships with other investors, and I want to emphasize this for everybody listening. Is there's a lot of newer investors think it's all about, you got to time the market, and that can play a role in it, but it also can be risky. What the real truth is for seasoned veteran investors is this: the old saying, and people that would say, I'm going to wait and buy. The real philosophy in real estate investors is to buy and wait. And, does the market matter? Absolutely it matters, but it's like dollar cost averaging. You might buy fewer properties when the prices are high, and you might pay more when the prices are low, but you are always in the game. That's why I love investors. Is I don't care what the owner occupant business is doing. The investor business is always on the go. It's always moving, But those two things really stuck with me, and we did well. I just didn't have a full grasp of the meaning behind it, or why was I doing so well. I just thought, I was lucky, or, the banks liked me because I already did a lot of real estate transactions and that kind of stuff. But the reality is it was, being there and being ready and being open to it instead of panicking. So what I want to leave this with everybody here, and we're going to continue on. We got a few more minutes to go, but now is not the time to panic. Now is the time to prepare. And this is why you look for people like John Giggy. It doesn't matter if you're in New York or Miami or San Francisco. The way the world is days, you can look up John Giggy on the internet. You can go to EXP, find him there. You can Google the Global Investor Agent Team and see his profile there, and have a conversation, because I know that's how I succeeded. I reached out to people that were successful. I used to be really shy. When I learned to just put myself out there, I found out there's some pretty awesome people that are willing to help, because they will tell you they also had help. And that's my story. Lord knows I didn't get where I am by myself. I definitely had help from people like John. So, hey, John, a couple more things. We don't know we can't ever predict the market. We can kind of guesstimate where it's going, and I appreciate you sharing your insights on that. But for I want to speak first to the consumers, and then to the agents serving the consumers, and what can they do to prepare in practical terms? People are worried about their credit scores. They're worried about the interest rates going up. How can I afford this? What can you share with them about preparing in today's market? First as a consumer, and then we can talk to the agent afterwards, if you don't mind.
I think a lot of times we can't really see ahead, and then we make decisions based on that blurry vision. And I always tell my clients, like, people, well, I'm not ready until 6 months from now. Mm-hmm. And I said, my recommendation is for you to talk to a lender today, so that you can get a really good picture of where you're at right now. And then you'll be given the tools, the resources necessary to get you to where you want to be. Because we had a client that was a referral from another client, and when she saw her employee buy a house, she's like, what? If he can buy a house, then I'm because she's been holding off. I'm not ready. I don't think I can do it. And then when she saw her employee buy a house, she's like, okay, all right. And then she called me up, and then we connected her with our lender. And when she sat down with the lender, she realized, holy cow, I can buy a house. And she totally just thanks us, and this has already been several years now, and she thanks us today. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful. And so I think it's important to stop letting that blurry vision hinder you, mm-hmm. and meet with the professional, right? Meet with a realtor that's going to help you out. Meet with the lender to find out where you're at. Because you might even find out that you're ready right now, and you don't want to miss out on the opportunity. And then maybe we need to work on some credit, right? And there's some easy steps. There's some simple steps. I can help you. I've done it personally in my own life, and I've learned a lot from rubbing shoulders with the consultant. And so there's some easy steps that you can do to increase that credit score, mm-hmm. so that you can have a better loan, better position. And, or maybe it's finances, right? And then we can talk about maybe different alternatives, and I'll tell you a true story. So it was John Maxwell, my representative, that actually set me up with the John Maxwell team. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys know Paul Martinelli. Paul Martinelli is well known as a thought leader, partnered with Les mm-hmm. Brown, and he partnered with Bob Proctor, and then now he was partnered with John Maxwell. So Mark is his cousin, and Paul shared this story where Mark's like, I want to buy a house, but I'm not ready. And Paul's like, well, how do you know you're not ready? He goes, have you looked into it? He goes, no, I just know I'm not ready. Well, then how do you know that you're not ready?
Yeah.
And so he says, why don't you look into it, start talking to the powers that be, and see. And lo and behold, he realized he could actually buy a house, and he bought a house with no money down. He bought a house with no money out of his pocket, and he ended up accomplishing his goal, and he bought his first home. But had he not had that conversation with his cousin, he would probably still, be waiting and saying, I'm not ready. And yeah. So just meet with those professionals and sit down with them and say, hey, look, I want to get a I always call it paint a picture. I want a picture painted for me. Let me know where I'm at today and what do I need to do, 6 months from now, 2 months from now, a year from now to be able to accomplish my goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And another thing that's really important, we get asked questions a lot from a lot of consumers about, should we wait? Why don't we wait? Should we buy now? Should we sell now? And the reality is, guys, is there's certainty in the present. We know what the market is right now. We can pretty much get close to what we believe you're going to get for your property now. We don't know what that's going to look like in 3 years. So the reality is, if you're looking to sell, the last market, the turnaround that took literally 10 years. Can you wait 10 more years to sell your home? Because if you can't, boy, now is the time. Now is the time to sell, because there's certainty, and values have obviously gone up, and they're still high relative to what they were even last year, year before, even 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge lesson I learned too, because I used to own a ton of properties, and it was a management nightmare. But and making those decisions was a regular occurrence. And finally, again, I was blessed with some good mentors, and my mentor at the time said, "Look, you have certainty in the present moment. You can't change what happened yesterday, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow." He said, if you're thinking about selling, there's a reason for it. Can you wait for that reason for 10 more years? And he asked me, and I was like, I get it. Now I was like, let's do it. Let's, and I'm so glad I did. It freed up a lot. I met my goals for investing, and I succeeded my goals. And selling them was gave me a lot of freedom to do other things like what I do now. It was an amazing journey. And John, you've had an amazing journey too. And I know we've went over our time here, but I appreciate you being who you are and sharing the way you share. And again, for those of you who weren't on the beginning, John and I actually know each other personally. We're on the same team called the Global Investor Agent Team. And if you want to get a hold of John, actually, John, if people want to pick your brain a little bit, is that okay if they reach out to you, email or on social media? If you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Facebook. So that would be facebook.com/get giggy with it. My last name's G as in George, I as in Irene, G's in George, G's in George, Y as in yellow, with it, get giggy with it, all one word. Wow. And you can find me, you can actually text me at 925-325-8324. My email address is john@johngiggy.com. And then my website is johngiggy.com. My coaching is John E as in Edward Giggy.com. But you can look up John Giggy on the internet. You should be able to find me.
Okay. Well, I like to get giggy with it.
Yeah, just don't put Giggy in the website and the Google, because you're going to get that famous, I forgot, she's that famous celebrity, and her dog is named Gidgy or something like that. And she pumps me. So the little tiny dog has got more popularity than I do.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's a real blessing to have you on the team, and I appreciate you sharing so much with everybody, all the listeners. And for those of you listening, please leave a review for this. Go to Apple, right? It's easy to do. Just follow the instructions and leave a review, because your reviews are that's our juice. We don't get compensated for this in monetary terms. It's simply your reviews are what keeps things going. So really do appreciate it. And while you're out there, go visit johngiggy.com or go to Facebook and look for, get giggy with it. Sorry. And you'll meet John there. And you know what? Pick his brain, because I tell you, he's one of the nicest, coolest guys you ever meet, and a wealth of experience and knowledge. And not only that, you'll probably walk away from that conversation feeling a whole lot better about things and having a little bit of direction on where you're going. Can't say any more about that, but appreciate you doing that. And before you leave the internet, go to globalinvestoragent.com. And for agents out there listening, I will do a quick plug here. Click on the Learn More button, globalinvestoragent.com, and learn more about it, because the market is changing, and you do need to add this to be part of your business model to succeed in a shift. Very, very important. So you guys take care of yourselves. We will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.